Welcome back everyone to another tutorial for Effex. Today we'll be extending our follow spline setup that we have created in the previous 3 tutorials, so you should definitely watch them if you haven't. And with some small material adjustments, we have finally this. And animated, in the end it looks, oh come on, like this. Alright, so this is what we have so far, and my idea now is to put this away, is to first of all show you how to create dying particles, and then I would like to, once they die, convert them to liquid particles so they are kind of popping into liquid once they're dying. So first of all, let's take care of aging particles and letting them die. Fold this one and we go into the position-based particles emitter, and here we have particle properties to attach, because currently these particles live endlessly. They don't have an age and they're just assumed to never die. So what we need is an age property. We do this here with the candidate button and just generate a property age for this one, which is added here. And from this point on, the particles do have a lifetime, and we can set the start value for this lifetime. Currently it's at 1, so they will immediately die once we play the timeline. Let's just put this to 200 frames, and now they will live for 200 frames. And then they will die off. Boom. Alright, so we have managed the first part. Quick and easy. And now we need to, once they die, we want them to be converted to liquid particles. Is a converter. So we go into the particles menu and choose pop particle converter, like this. So our source particles are indeed position-based particles, so passive, as we have learned in the previous tutorials. So we choose simple particles here, and in the latest version you could also, as this is a high level node, just drop the high level node here and we'll automatically choose the compatible subnode that are inside this high level node. But you could just also use the candidate button. So okay, but our target particles, so the converted ones should be liquid particles, like this. We could now also choose the simpler particles as the target group. As you can see here, liquid particles are instantly generated because they're instantly converted. And as each particle group can take passive particles and liquid particles, you could do it that way. Anyway, as we want to have it being a liquid, we use another high level node in the dynamics here and choose liquid flip, like this. Put it in our Effex scene, and now we get that liquid domain area here that is instantly spanned. So let's adapt this first. I don't need it to be that high, like this maybe. And it almost spans our whole word, which is nice. And then move it down a little. Alright. So like this. So we go in our converter again, and instead of using the particle group of the position-based particles, we choose the flip liquid particles instead as the target. And also do the same here, as flip liquid is a high level node. I can drop it here and it will give me the compatible node here directly without using a connect button. These liquid particles are now in the flip liquid high level node encoded, but they're directly converted, and actually we don't want that like this. We don't want that. We want the liquid particles to be converted once the other particles are dying. So how can we accomplish that? In the particle converter, we go into constraints. Yes, constraints. We always use constraints. And here we choose a new one, which is a particle constraint. PCS stands for particle constraint. The others are just normal constraints. And we choose PCS attribute like this. It's added here now too. And I double click it to directly go into the settings. And now I can set a certain attribute. So if I want them to be converted when they are dying, I choose the attribute alive. So in this case, they would be converted when these particles are alive, as that's not what we want. We want them to be dead. So what we do is we invert the result of this constraint. So instead of alive, inverted, it would be when they're dead. Nothing happens. So let's play this. Our particles are moving to our spline. They're following the spline path. And once they're dying, at frame 200, we have set they will be converted to liquid particles. Now, you have seen that that happened, but something else happened. These liquid particles, they were dying off instantly. Because once we convert, all the properties like H, etc., will be converted or copied over to the converted particles as well. And as the other particles were dying, this means their H was at the maximum. So the new particles, the liquid particles, will also be at the maximum, or at least have that property, that H property, with the state at the maximum. So they're dying off immediately as well. So what we need when we convert, we need to set a new H for the liquid particles. And we can also do that pretty quickly. Like this. We go again into the particle converter. And now here we can assign particle properties. And we do have an H property actually down here generated already. And I can put it down here now. And now these new particles will have an initial H of 200 again once they're converted. So the old value from the source particles doesn't matter anymore. And we now do the simulation again. We will see that the liquid particles that are converted will live, well, much longer, for 200 frames actually. There you go. And they fall down due to gravity of how a liquid behaves. Well, and that's how it's done. You can quickly convert any particle type into other particle types. So let's just do some more setup work, create more particles actually when the conversion happens. So currently the originals are killed, which we don't really need that option because the other particles, the originals, are dying anyway. But if they wouldn't, you could just set it here as well. And only at particle location means that for each single source particle, another single liquid particle would be generated. Like this. If I zoom in to see it better, now when we reach frame 200, you can see here the original particle count and then the converted one, and it will be just exactly the same amount of particles. But if I turn it off, particles will be distributed around each dying particle. So if we want more particles, we need to assign particle emission settings here. So let's just create a new one. Particles, emitters, particle emission settings. Take it, put it down here, and drop it here. And in here we have a value. It's 1000. So for each dying particle, it would now generate 1000 new liquid particles per second. If you want it per frame, so which we actually want in this case because we only have one frame where the particles are converted, because then they're dying off. So we take shot and I can exactly set how many are generated per source particle. Let's say 15. And you will see then now a lot more particles will be generated during conversion, because for each dying particle there will be 15 new liquid particles. Like this. So we get a bigger splash that way and have probably more defined liquid. Okay, it's that easy. I could now mash the whole thing and do new renderings, etc. And we will do that in the next tutorial.